My sister erased me from family photos, mocked my job, and called me an embarrassment in front of her fiancé after I spent $150,000 on her life expenses. So I made one final transfer. Everything to zero. They think I'm done, but I haven't even started. It's strange how a single phone call can pull the thread that unravels everything. I still remember the soft buzz of my phone vibrating against the center console as I drove back from Charlotte. I'd just finished a major client meeting, a security breach cleanup for a regional bank, and was feeling that rare calm I hardly ever get. The holiday break was finally starting, and I was excited, really excited, to spend Thanksgiving at home with my family. Like every year, I dial my mom, Lillian, out of habit. "Hey, Mom," I said with a smile. "I'm just wrapping up here. Do you want me to bring my peach cobbler again this year? I've already got the peaches. Should I get vanilla or cinnamon ice cream?" There was a pause. Not a usual one. A long, heavy, breath-holding silence. "Savannah," she finally said, slowly, like she was choosing her words very carefully. "I think it might be better if you sat this one out." I blinked, confused, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. What? What do you mean?" Her voice lowered. "Kayla is hosting a formal dinner this year. It's more than just Thanksgiving. It's part of a fundraiser for Trevor's campaign contacts." I had to pull over. I wasn't about to process this while driving. "Mom, I don't care if it's dinner with the president. Why would that mean I shouldn't come?" She hesitated again, and this time, her words weren't carefully picked. They stumbled out raw. Kayla said she didn't want to complicate the image of our family brand. I almost laughed. Almost. But the sting came first. "Complicate," I echoed. "Because what? I work in tech and not law. Because I don't wear designer clothes? It's not like that," she rushed. "It's just, Trevor's donors are traditional, from DC. They're very polished, politically connected. Kayla wants everything to look professional, high standard." She thought. I cut her off. She thought I'd embarrass her. Mom didn't reply. And I knew then I was right. And what hit hardest wasn't the rejection. It was the betrayal. Because the food on that table, the roof above her head, the tuition that carried her through Boston Law College, I paid for all of it. Quietly. Consistently. Without ever being asked to be noticed. I didn't always have much growing up, but I learned how to build. I started my cybersecurity firm, Reed Secure, from my small apartment in Asheville when I was 23. Took me nearly 12 years to get it off the ground. I didn't come from money, but I worked double hours, said no to every vacation, and poured everything into my business. I built trust with clients who needed digital forensics, breach cleanups, and secure architecture. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. And when Kayla graduated undergrad and got accepted into law school in Boston, she cried over the phone. Said she didn't know how she could ever afford it. Said she didn't want to take out loans. I told her not to worry, that I'd take care of it. And I did. Every semester. $42,000 a year. Tuition. Rent. Flights home. Books. Whatever she needed. I never once asked her to pay me back. So yeah, hearing that she'd rather I not show up because I didn't fit the image she was selling to political donors, it wasn't just a snub. It was a punch to the gut. I drove home in silence. My apartment was warm and quiet, but something in me had gone cold. I sat at my desk and opened her loan management portal. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was just tired. Tired of being useful, but invisible. I didn't cancel anything. Not yet. But I transferred the account ownership into her name. Removed my credentials. Changed the notifications to her email. Then I set an alert for the billing team that the account had no verified payment method. Auto suspension in 7 days unless someone stepped in. When I closed my laptop, I didn't feel powerful. I felt free. Just a little. The next morning, the storm began. My phone lit up before I even had coffee. First a text. "Kayla, what happened to my loan account? Why is it frozen?" Then another. "Kayla, did you change something? They said I might lose my classes." Then a call from Mom. "Savannah, what did you do?" she asked, her voice sharp with panic. I gave her what she wanted, I replied calmly. Control. Responsibility. A clean image. Mom gasped. She's in the middle of law finals. Her future is at risk. So is mine, I said. Always has been. You just didn't notice. I thought that would be the end of it, but life has a crueler sense of irony than I expected. 2 days later, my cousin Riley texted me, something that made my chest tighten in disbelief. Riley, heads up. Kayla's been telling people she had a trust fund from her dad. Said she made it on her own. Said the family's messy and full of drama. I stared at the screen, rereading it. Kayla hadn't just excluded me. She had erased me. The next day, it got worse. Trevor found out. Apparently, he believed her trust fund lied too. When he realized she'd built her education on my back, and worse, lied about it, he broke up with her. Packed his things. Moved out. The breakup even ended up in some petty local politics blog, along with rumors about her faking her background to gain campaign favor. I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. It wasn't satisfying. It just felt tragic. But nothing prepared me for what happened the day she stormed into my office. I was in a meeting with 2 clients, explaining a recent breach simulation, when the glass doors burst open. Kayla stood there, her hair messy, eyes wild, cheeks flushed. You ruined my life, she screamed, right in front of everyone. I stood up slowly. You need to leave. You think you're better than me now? She snapped. You think you're noble? Security had already started moving in, gently guiding her back toward the door. You'll regret this, she hissed, her voice cracking. You're still my sister. I didn't say a word. Not then. Not until the door clicked shut and silence fell again. Then I sat back down and said to my clients, sorry about that. Let's continue. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The day Kayla barged into my office, screaming and unraveling in front of my staff and clients, didn't end with shouting. It ended with a silence I had waited my whole life to hear, the silence of no longer being needed. No one in my family had ever shown up to ask how I was doing. But they had no issue showing up in chaos, demanding help, forgiveness, or money. Especially money. After she was escorted out, I sat at my desk for a long while, trying to calm the strange mixture of emotions swirling in my chest, anger, relief, and the hollow ache of disappointment. I didn't respond to her text that night. I didn't need to. The silence itself was an answer. By the next morning, my inbox was flooded, not with client work, but with messages from family. First it was Mom. Lillian, you've made your point. Enough is enough. She's your sister. Then came the guilt-ridden ones. Lillian, Kayla is barely holding it together. Her internship just rescinded their offer. You didn't have to take it this far. Lillian, she has nothing now. Do you want her to fail? I didn't reply. Because the truth was simple. I didn't want her to fail. I just wanted her to finally understand what it meant to carry her own weight. That weekend, I drove out to the Blue Ridge Parkway alone. The leaves were deep orange and fading into winter. I didn't bring my laptop. I didn't check my phone. I just sat on a hill with a cup of coffee and tried to feel peace. It didn't come immediately, but something better did, a sense of direction. I realized I had spent years putting out fires for people who wouldn't even light a candle for me. Kayla was my blood, but she wasn't my responsibility anymore. By Monday, I'd made a decision. The money that once went to Kayla's tuition, every dollar, would now go into Reed Secure. My company had been growing, and it deserved to flourish. I hired 3 new digital threat analysts, expanded into physical penetration testing, and upgraded all our internal infrastructure. By the end of the quarter, we secured a $280,000 contract with a tech incubator in Atlanta. We also launched a mentorship program for underrepresented women entering cybersecurity. That was the part that healed me the most, not punishing Kayla, but building something that gave others the chance I never had. But, of course, the family didn't see it that way. To them, I had become cold, unforgiving, harsh. Lillian left me a voicemail late one night. I still remember every word. You've changed, Savannah. This isn't the girl who used to hold everything together. I don't even recognize you anymore. And maybe she was right. I had changed. I was no longer the person who fixed everything for everyone while quietly being dismissed or forgotten. A few days before Christmas, my cousin Riley called me again. She sounded cautious, even a little sad. "I saw your mom and Kayla at the grocery store," she said. "They looked rough. Word is Kayla officially dropped out. She moved back in with your mom." I nodded, though Riley couldn't see me. "That doesn't surprise me. She still thinks it's your fault." I sighed. Of course she did. Accountability had never been her strong suit. "She said you wanted to see her suffer," Riley added. "I didn't," I said. "I wanted her to see me." There was a pause. "Well," Riley said gently, "I see you. I always have." That meant more than I expected. Because in all of this, very few people had ever looked at me, truly looked, and seen the woman who had spent years sacrificing everything behind the scenes. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Handwritten, addressed in shaky block letters. No return name, but I knew immediately who it was from. Grandpa Raymond. My mom's father. He lived alone in Durham, about 3 hours away, and had always been a quiet presence in my life. After Grandma passed, he kept to himself more, rarely visiting. I opened the letter slowly. "Savannah," it read. "I don't know the full story. I've only heard whispers. But I do know this. When a woman learns to protect her peace, people who benefited from her silence will always complain. Don't let that stop you. You gave them more than they ever gave you. And now it's your turn." I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand the words, but because I needed to believe someone in my family saw me without conditions. That letter didn't fix everything, but it felt like the first real acknowledgement I'd received in years. When Christmas Eve rolled around, I didn't bother decorating. No tree. No lights. Just me, my couch, and a glass of wine. Jazz played softly in the background. I was tired, but not in the way I used to be. This was a different kind of tired, the one that comes after climbing out of a hole you didn't know you were in. And then my phone lit up. "Lillian, Kayla's been expelled. She has nothing. Please talk to us." I stared at the message, not with anger, but with stillness. No apology. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just another call for help. Another emergency where I was expected to sweep in, fix it, and disappear again. I didn't reply. Instead, I placed my phone face down and poured another glass of wine. Somewhere out there, they were probably sitting around a table, wondering why I hadn't shown up. Wondering how I could just abandon my role in the family. But I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was finally choosing myself. And I realized something as I sat there, watching the Christmas lights blink softly from my neighbor's porch. People who only remember you when they need something were never really thinking of you at all. For the first time in my life, I wasn't ashamed of saying no. I wasn't afraid of silence. I wasn't searching for their approval. I was free. And though I didn't know what Kayla's next move would be, or how long it would take for my family to paint me as the villain, none of it mattered. Because for the first time in 35 years, I understood that love without respect isn't love at all. And I was done begging for it. I thought cutting off the tuition payments, ignoring the calls, and choosing silence would be the end of it. I believed, foolishly, that once Kayla hit rock bottom, she'd take responsibility and we'd both move on, separately. But life has a funny way of testing you even after you think you've passed the hardest part. 2 days after Christmas, I got a message from an unknown number. "You can't ignore me forever. I'll find you if I have to." No name, but I didn't need one. The wording, the tone, it was Kayla. I could feel the desperation oozing through every letter. I blocked the number immediately, just like I had blocked the last 3. Then came emails. First to my business account, then to my personal inbox. She tried Instagram. She even left a comment under a photo of a security panel I'd posted 2 months ago. "Talk to me. I'm your sister." I didn't respond. I wasn't being cruel. I was being clear. I had drawn the line and I was holding it. For once. But she wasn't done. That following Monday, I was in a meeting with my tech team reviewing a breach report when the front door slammed open, so hard the alarm chime went off. I looked up and my heart dropped, not out of fear, but out of disbelief. There she was, Kayla, standing in the doorway of my office, hair wild from the wind, eyes bloodshot, cheeks streaked with old mascara. Her heels were muddy, like she'd walked halfway across Asheville just to get here. "I need to talk to my sister," she shouted. My staff froze. No one moved. I stood up slowly and walked toward her. "This is a place of business, Kayla. You can't just show up here screaming. You're ruining my life," she snapped. Her voice broke halfway through the sentence. "You think you can just abandon me like I'm nothing?" I could feel all eyes on me. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "You already treated me like nothing," I said softly but firmly. "Now, I'm just giving you what you claimed I was all along, irrelevant." She looked stunned for a second, but then rage took over. "You're heartless. I'm your blood. You're the only one I have." By then, security had come from the building's lobby. A tall, quiet man placed his hand gently near her shoulder. "Ma'am, I need you to step outside. You're disrupting business." Kayla jerked away. "Don't touch me. I'm her sister. The sister of the woman who runs this place." I turned toward my staff and spoke with a calm I didn't even know I had. "No. She's the sister of the person who runs this place. She doesn't run anything here." That did it. She froze, like the reality of her position finally hit her. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe she was just out of options. As they guided her out, her last words echoed behind her. "You're abandoning me." And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. Just clarity. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. I didn't check the screen, I already knew. I answered anyway. "Savannah, what happened this morning?" It was Mom, her voice already tight with frustration. "Kayla called me. Said she was kicked out of your office. She's humiliated." I sipped my water and sat back in my chair. "And, do you know what'll happen if she gets expelled?" she snapped. "I do," I said. "And I think she needs to." Mom paused. "Don't you think this is too much? She's still so young." "She's 24, I said calmly. I was paying rent and running my first contracts at that age. "She's not a child. She's your sister." "No," I said. "She's someone who used to be my sister. The Kayla I knew, who used to call me her role model, who hugged me every time I flew up to Boston just to help remove that person. She disappeared the moment I became a liability to her image." I heard Mom's breathing shift on the other end. She didn't expect that answer. "You promised you'd help her until she graduated." "I promised to help my sister. Not this version of her. Not someone who stands on the foundation I built and pretends she climbed there alone." There was a long silence. Then came the guilt, as always. "You're the only one in this family who can help. Are you really going to turn your back on blood?" And there it was, the line I'd heard since I was a teenager. Anytime I said no, anytime I even hesitated, it came back. Blood. Obligation. Duty. But what about love? Respect? Recognition? I set my glass down and said what I should have said years ago. "I'm not an ATM with a heartbeat, Mom. I'm not here just to keep bailing people out. I didn't work myself into anxiety attacks for over a decade just to be labeled a shame." "You've changed," she whispered. I smiled faintly. "No, Mom." I finally stopped pretending. I hung up before she could answer. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without waking up to phantom guilt. But the calls didn't stop. That week, Aunt Cheryl reached out. Then Uncle Mark. Then some high school friend I hadn't talked to since 2007 sent me a Facebook message. "Is it true? Did you let your sister get expelled? People are saying you went too far." I didn't respond. Because when people only know the final chapter, they don't understand the book. They didn't see the nights I skipped sleep to meet payment deadlines. The times I called Kayla to tell her rent had been covered, even when I hadn't paid mine yet. The birthdays I missed. The jobs I turned down to be there. They didn't see the text I once got from her during her second year that said, "You're the only reason I believe I can make it." But I remembered. And it hurt more than any of the rumors being passed around. Still, I knew what had to come next. Not for her, but for me. Because if I didn't protect my peace now, I never would. And what happened next, even I couldn't have predicted. The final unraveling didn't come with screaming. It came quietly, like all real endings do. One gray January morning, I opened my inbox and found an email from Boston Law College. The subject line read, "Final financial notice. Read, Kayla." Inside was a short message. "This is your final reminder. Tuition remains unpaid. Please submit a valid payment method by January 10th to avoid permanent withdrawal from the spring semester." I read it 3 times, calmly, without emotion. I didn't forward it to my mother. I didn't respond to Kayla. I just closed my laptop and poured myself a cup of tea. 2 days later, word reached me from Riley, who, by now, was the only family member I still talked to. She called during her lunch break, her voice a mix of disbelief and concern. "She showed up at Jordan's house," Riley said. "The ex, remember?" "Jordan?" I repeated, startled. "Trevor's friend." "Yeah." She stood out front crying for almost an hour. People saw her. Words spreading fast. I stayed silent, waiting. "She's telling people you ruined her life. But that's not all." Riley hesitated, then continued. "Trevor found out she lied about the tuition, about the trust fund story. He told his mom everything. Said he feels like he dated a stranger for 2 years. My chest tightened, but not from anger, just from exhaustion. I had warned her. I had told her where lies would lead, but she hadn't listened. Riley went on. "A few nights ago, she met with Trevor at a cafe in the Belmont district. Tried to apologize. Someone I know was working the bar. They said it was tense. Like nuclear. I imagined it, Kayla, dressed to perfection, putting on her polished act, hoping charm could save what truth had wrecked. But Trevor wasn't fooled. He told her, 'If you're mature enough to accept money, you should be mature enough to acknowledge who gave it to you,' Riley said. Those words stuck with me, maybe more than they should have. That same week, the final blow landed. My office received an email from Kayla. It wasn't a direct apology. It was a plea. 'If you don't help me now, my entire future is gone. You said you loved me. Was that ever real? I don't have anyone else.' I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I had cared too much for too long, and it had left me empty. And love, real love, doesn't look like begging one person to carry all the weight. I blocked her email, then her alternate one, then the burner Instagram account she created just to DM me. That Monday morning, as I was reviewing blueprints for a new client contract, I felt something shift. For the first time in years, my life felt like it was mine. Quiet, steady mine. Kayla was officially withdrawn from Boston Law. She moved back home to Mom's. Word spread fast. Everyone had an opinion. I became the villain in every family group chat I was no longer part of. But I didn't flinch. I didn't break. Because I knew what they didn't. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are survival. With the money I used to spend on tuition, I expanded Read Secure even further. I renovated the office, brought in ergonomic systems, added an employee wellness fund. My staff noticed. Clients noticed. And I noticed I slept better. I smiled more. I didn't dread phone calls anymore. Then came something unexpected, a letter in the mail. Grandpa Raymond again. Just a single sentence this time, written in his slow, slanted hand. "You don't owe anyone an explanation for saving yourself." I cried when I read that. Not because I was sad, but because someone in this world finally understood without needing details. I didn't spend another moment waiting for an apology that would never come. I didn't wait for Kayla to show up at my door. I didn't hope for Mom to say she was wrong. Instead, I woke up early. I worked hard. I took care of myself. I started living. And for the first time, I wasn't ashamed of my scars. I was proud of them, because they proved I survived. And finally, I had stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't have bandaged me if I were the one hurt. That's the story. Not of revenge, but of choosing peace when chaos had worn out its welcome. And if you're someone who's ever been the background character in a family story you paid for, here's what I want you to know. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's becoming free.